Forgot my light.
Or not start yet.
I don't understand. I turn on my light, and now my image, my video only shows me from the neck down, so I can't tell if I'm sitting straight. I can't see myself.
You look perfect.
Okay, I know, but I can't tell. I can't see.
Really? You want to adjust a little bit or
No, I just
no?
looked at it. I don't know. Don't think I can.
Okay,
I can
but
stop the video. I can mute it.
you look good to me.
No, I just mean I can make those controls, but I can't change the
Yeah, okay.
my picture in the screen. I can only see from here down.
Ah, let's see. Has that happened before?
Yeah,
Okay. So can we just go
yeah.
ahead?
I'll ignore that. Just go ahead.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you
If I
so much.
if I need to be adjusted, just tell me to.
Yeah. All right. Look, well, thank you so much and welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is April 23rd, and right now the time is 11:30 Pacific time, and we have our dear friend Tom Fulton. Tom, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
Very good, very good. So nice to see you. And then Tom worked as a FBI in FBI for almost 30 years, and he's been assistant director of FBI for 5 years. So thank you so much for coming to our show to share your thoughts about the current affair in the United States. And for this,
Yeah, thank you for having me.
sure, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. And then for this week, well, Trump trial is the biggest, hardest topic. That's we probably will discuss a little bit. And also something happened in our universities. Columbia University. We all know what's going on there, or we don't know what's going on behind. But we see some similarity from today's revolution in American universities and to 2020, the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and everything. So, is that anything related to each other, to these two kind of revolution, or this is something else? So, these are some topics that we like to discuss with Tom. So, Tom,
Okay.
what do you think about the Trump trial in New York?
Well, I think it's going to be amazing if he can get a fair trial. The juries in New York and Washington are just 95+% Democratic, and some of these jurors that have been excused in New York are being interviewed by the media on the sidewalk in front of the courthouse. Basically saying that they admitted that they couldn't be fair, that they were prejudiced against Trump, that they didn't like him. They did not imagine that they could be fair in judging him. And now maybe that was just an excuse because they didn't want to be tied up in court 6 or 8 weeks, however long the trial will take. But maybe they were just being honest that they can't be fair with Trump. They just don't like him, and they're going to vote against him no matter what the evidence shows. So that's pretty significant. That what's interesting is that Trump lawyers have asked for changes of venue in some of these cases to be even in New York, hold it out in Westchester County or one of the suburban counties that won't be quite as much. They'll still be fairly strong Biden supporters and therefore anti-Trump, but maybe not as strong as in downtown Manhattan in New York. And in DC, it's probably worse. So any trial that he undergoes in Washington is probably going to be a worse situation as far as the bias of the jury. And not just the jury, but the prosecutors, the judges that are sitting on these cases, ruling after ruling is just in some cases absurd. And many distinguished lawyers in the country that have a tremendous reputation, constitutional experts like Alan Dershowitz, who taught law at Harvard for about 40 years, some of the other ones that are just saying that these cases are absolutely ridiculous in some of the legal uh, thoughts that the prosecutors have in bringing some of these cases. For example, this case in New York, is almost a made up case. Alvin Bragg, the prosecuting attorney, district attorney for Manhattan, is basically taking local charges that are not federal charges, and those charges federal charges had been examined at the federal level by federal prosecutors, and they said no, it's no serious offense to prosecute. And then Bragg comes along and says, no, we're going to prosecute that, even though it's federal, we're going to incorporate it into the state charges, local charges, and we're going to bring on for guidance and help an assistant United States attorney from the Department of Justice to come in and help our team. So really what Bragg is trying to do is prosecute Trump as a federal case when it's not.
Already said no, right?
All right.
So how could they? I just don't understand.
When you look at these cases, they're making up laws as they go along. And in this case is a classic. They made this up. And it's never been done before. They're doing it now. And then the motions go back and forth. Now, I think that the problem is that you have so much abuse of the New York judicial system, starting with the Attorney General, Letitia James, all the way down. And I think that the amount of prejudice that they show, racism and bias, before the trials even start, I think is absurd. And to me, somebody needs to rein in or bring in these courts and these prosecutors and say, no, you've gone too far. Now, I don't know, technically, where's the Supreme Court? Are they just going to wait until everything's done and it goes up the chain and is appealed to them? Well, maybe we may see that. But along the way, you see other abuses that are severe. For example, in the case with Judge Ergeron, where Trump gets fined $350 million or whatever it was, and then you have the Attorney General saying, well, you can't use this for money and you can't use that to pay. You have to pay a several $100 million bond just to appeal the case. And that's, how unusual is that? So finally, somebody comes along, from another district and says, okay, we'll pay the bond on behalf of Trump. They lowered it to, about half of what it used to be. And this particular company says, okay, we'll pay it. And then Letitia James is trying to block that. Oh, no, how do we know you're good for the money? You're an out-of-state company. It's like everything she could throw, every opportunity that Trump may have to try to level the playing field, they tip it over and tell them, no, you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. I want to convict, Letitia James is just, I promised the people I was going to get Trump. The heck with all of the violent crime in New York. The heck with all of this other stuff. If she gets Trump, she's successful. And they're doing everything they can do to get it.
Everything seems like go crazy. And I just saw a news, I think it's the newest from the court, and said the Manhattan AD Bragg suggest not to arrest Trump. Instead, just have him pay the fine, and also order him to off 8 articles from his social media. So it seems like they realize a little bit about if you arrest Trump, it will help Trump to get more people support him. So what do you think about this movement? Because we heard that they're going to arrest Trump today, maybe. So
no, I think he needs to be disciplined by the Bar Association or senior judges. The appellate court in New York is not going to do it. The Supreme Court in New York, the local Supreme Court, probably won't do anything. So I think that something has to be done. He's out of control.
Right. So many people just wonder why he has it seems like Letitia James and Bragg has the right above the law.
Well, it's almost like every time they do something that's not ordinary, out of the realm of what's usual procedure, they're violating one constitutional amendment or another, and showing the people why we have the Bill of Rights, why we have the first 10 amendments. Now, the latest amendment that they're going after is the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits unusual fines or punishment.
Right.
So if you have, in this case, if the normal procedure, is hard to say what's normal because they've never had this type of prosecution, but typically, it's not a violent act. It's white collar crime, no matter what. So if normal punishment is some type of fine, and then they raise it to several $100 million and say, we're not gonna issue that because it'll make you more popular. Well, they've already raised these fines to such a level that they're already unconstitutional. Right. And then the cruel and unusual punishment provision of the Bill of Rights is also in the Eighth Amendment. So in other words, if you jaywalk, you walk across the street illegally, they can't give you the death penalty. That's cruel and unusual. Other people that jaywalk haven't been executed. You shouldn't be. But in Trump's case, anything's fair. No matter how unusual, no matter how severe, they don't care. And I think that at some point, the people that run the judicial system need to care. They need to care about the reputation of the laws in New York that are being so thoroughly abused and bringing complete discredit that the judicial practitioners in New York don't care about what's fair or what's the normal legal procedures or any of that. They are so determined to get Trump no matter what. They don't care if they're doing anything legal or not. And typically they're not. So, and other legal scholars, that you see on various news channels are saying this is bringing complete discredit on the entire New York state judicial system. And it is. That it's hard to argue that they're not abusing their power at the prosecutor level to try to get Trump.
Mm-hmm. So after today, so many people are asking, where is our law? Do we still have a law? So if the law enforcement doing something against the law, who going to take care of this chaos? Who going to come here and hold them accountable? It seems nobody.
So far, nobody. So far. But again, the way the system is designed, in this case, that's being so badly abused, is that they basically rely on the appellate system. But in New York, the appellate courts are all Democrat and anti-Trump. So then it would have to go to the Supreme Court in New York and then eventually to the United States Supreme Court. So I think that all of these things that are going against Trump now will all be upheld. Trump will be vindicated in the long run. And I don't think they care. I think they know that. I think all they care about is get him now and see if they can lock him up for anything right now, and then try and prohibit him from being actually put in office, from being able to be president. Now you have the latest Congress, some of the members of the J6 committee now have introduced legislation to say that Trump shouldn't get Secret Service protection. So that's another Biden administration or Democrat thing. They've done this now with Bobby Kennedy Jr., denying him Secret Service protection. So it's like their political enemies are not going to have protection when they know there's people out there in the public that hate them so much that it's not unexpected if they get an attempt on their life. If there's an attempted assassination, Bobby Kennedy, with an uncle and a father already assassinated, has a huge bullseye on his back. And then now you have Trump, same thing. So they should be getting Secret Service protection, and the law should be flexible. And the problem is, if it's too flexible, the Biden administration will abuse it. And I think right now what's happening to me is that they've tried everything up till now to keep Trump from being elected, get him off the ballot. That failed 9-0 in the Supreme Court. That was ruled unconstitutional. The Colorado kicking him off the ballot. Now you have these other issues that are coming up, and they're basically saying from the Democratic Party standpoint, they're throwing everything they could possibly throw to try to keep Trump from being on a ballot. If he's on the ballot and he gets elected, if he gets elected from being sworn in, and that's why some people they don't want to even threaten what might happen to Trump, but everybody knows what might happen in our political system, and it's very dangerous for him. And you combine that with his personality, that he's not afraid to go in the public or to go into a local, ice cream shop or coffee shop or whatever to meet the people, shake their hands, or go down the sidewalk. The things that he's doing, that he doesn't have much protection, but the protection he has, they must be cringing every day that he is so vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so that's their other hope. You hate to even say it, but it looks like his political opponents would rather he just be killed, and that'd be the end of it.
Yeah. Some people just call this as assassination permission for
yep.
they're going to introduce to the Congress. So what do you think?
They use the argument, the logic of, well, if it was in the 1930s, before 1933, Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. So you have people saying, if they could have killed him in 1932 or 31 or 30, we might not have had the Holocaust. We might not have had World War II, killing hundreds of millions of people in Europe. And, that part would be true, but that's what they're basically saying. So it would have been justified to take Hitler out before he took over Germany or during his time. There were many attempts on his life while he was Chancellor of Germany. And so now what they're looking at well, maybe that's the answer for Trump. Don't let him. Well, he's already been president. What happened? What happened then? Did he start a Holocaust? Did he start executing people? Did he commit genocide? Did he start any other wars? How was the economy while he was president? How were these other factors? How was taxes? All of these things that were really good for the country happened during his first presidency. And then when he lost, whether it was stolen or not, when he lost, he made no attempt to commit, overthrow the government, commit an insurrection, or say, come and get me. I'm going to be locked up in the White House and you need to send the military in. He didn't do any of that. He left office orderly, like you should, even though he believed that the election was stolen. And piece by piece, more information has come out in the interim that, it kind of looks like maybe there was certain swing states where the election was stolen, because it wasn't stolen by that many votes cumulatively across the country. So you have people that aren't exactly stupid saying, here's the evidence that there was voter fraud, that there was illegal activity going on. And, so far, what did he do that discredited him from being the president then? They didn't have to send the military. They didn't have to do any of that. He said, okay, he left office. I'm protesting it. I don't believe it was fair. I believe it was stolen. And we'll do what we can in the courts or however to try to rectify what happened to him. So where's the evidence that he's going to initiate some kind of a coup of his own? There's none. He didn't do it. He could have done it. He didn't. Right. So if he didn't do it then, why everything that he did as president then, keeping us out of wars, the best economy in history, the best unemployment numbers for Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, others, all of the things that he did that were great for the economy, where's the evidence that he's not going to be great next time? Mm-hmm. So
I don't think they care about the evidence. They don't. And
they don't. You're right. They don't.
Facts, they don't.
But the point is, they can't. It would help their argument if there was some, if there was some evil doing on his part last time.
Exactly.
But where is it? What did he do last time?
Well, actually, they hate him. The first day he announced that he's going to run the president from 2015. So then they have their own narrative. So all these things, the lies, are their narrative to take Trump down. because
Yeah,
they know that he's there for people, not for himself good.
right.
And then I'm so glad and thank you so much for mentioning the bill that they try to introduce in the Congress that want to take off the protection from Trump. And what do you think about the future of the bill? Can this bill pass, or can what do you think about the bill? The different.
I don't think it'll pass.
Okay, that's good. So many people are worried about that because
Yeah,
just
me too. But but I think in the long run it's not going to pass.
okay, that's a good
And the
news.
stupid thing about it is if there's anybody that could protect himself financially, hire the guards, hire former Secret Service agents to be on his protection detail. If there's anybody that could do that, he could do it. He could afford that. But the problem is that what about next time? Future candidates that don't have that kind of money,
Mhm.
they can't afford hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect themselves. And I think that's where the argument will come down the line. And it could be for Democrats. These Democrats that are going to run. Now, if they stole enough money, they've got it and they could afford it. But for the average, if there's an honest, I should say average, but if there's an honest Democrat out there that's going to run for office in the future, will they be able to afford it? Will
So
they
the
be able to put the money up if they haven't stolen through corruption? If they haven't accumulated enough money, maybe they can. But the average person can't.
so the a very sad question that I have to ask you, Tom, is do we have any Democrats are honest? I mean, the congressmen, the women from Democrats.
No, there may be, there may be, but they
Okay.
have to hide it if they are. So when you have these Democratic votes, whatever it might be, they have to vote in step.
Yeah.
So I refer to this as the herd voting that they do, like a herd of rats. So you don't have, if you have an honest Democrat that says, this isn't fair, this isn't right, we shouldn't be doing this, you're not going to hear them speak up. And that's the fear that I've had all along, that they do that. Republicans, notorious for not getting along, not following the party line, doing what they want. The so-called rhinos, Republican in name only. But you don't see that with Democrats. You don't see Democrat in name only. You see Democrats going along with this herd voting, this herd mentality. And that's how they get away with that. That's why a good example is the House of Representatives impeaches Mayorkas,
Mhm.
Secretary of Homeland Security. He's responsible directly for enforcing the border laws, border protection. And he has notoriously over and over and over directly lied to Congress. Oh no, the border's secure. Under oath, lied. And it's almost like they show the cameras show the news coverage. Don't believe your lying eyes. That's not really happening. As thousands storm the border or attack, Homeland Security officials at the border. And so the House of Representatives, following the Constitution, filed the articles of impeachment.
Mhm.
And then the House managers walk the articles over to the Senate. And what's supposed to happen is that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, is supposed to preside over a trial of Mayorkas in the Senate using the Senate chambers. And the senators are the jury, the judge and jury. So, however, to convict Mayorkas, 2/3 of the Senate has to vote for conviction. That's 67 senators. And when they bring the articles over, instead of setting up the procedures and how the courtroom and what the dates are going to be, and let the chief judge know to come, on such and such date, be here, we'll start the trial, you have the Democrats just throw it out. No, we're not going to hear the case.
Right.
It's never happened before.
Mhm.
Ever. Somehow they just make up new laws as it goes along. That now Mayorkas. Now the problem is that because you had Pelosi in charge of the House of Representatives for the last couple of years until recently, until the last 2 years, as a result, she was never going to allow articles of impeachment to even be voted on in the House of Representatives. So it wasn't like the Republicans in the House could have started this 3 years ago They couldn't. Pelosi wouldn't even let them hold committee hearings about it. So now, when they finally have the vote, there's not enough time to really, if it went, it would be symbolic, because by the time this went to the Senate and it went through the voting process, the prosecution, the defense, and then the vote, there wouldn't be enough time. So, but the problem is, time or no time, the Democrats had already decided, like a herd of rats, we're not going to vote him guilty. So all that would happen is they would sit in court for a couple of months. It would be symbolic, because he would go right back to being Homeland Security Secretary right after the trial, which might be election day by the time it's over. So
that is,
it's unbelievable.
yeah, it's very, very sad reality. So the behavior of Democrats are not a party, a normal party, but again. So again, will not follow the law. That's why we call them again. So right now,
like an organized crime group.
Yeah,
no question.
Crime group. So how can you ask these kind of group to follow the law? That's a question.
You can't ask them to. The law should be followed, and there should be checks and balances for what happens if they don't.
Right.
So that should be, but there's like nothing that anybody can do. Schumer decides we're not going to hear the case. It's not going to go to the Senate. We're not going to have a trial or prosecution. And everybody's like, uh-oh, now what? Yeah. That's a good question. Now what? Because nobody's done this before.
Right.
Nobody has disobeyed. In the Constitution, you have the elaborate procedure. The House brings the articles of impeachment, which is like an indictment. And after they do that, the case then goes to the Senate. And you have prosecutors that are selected. Some are congressmen, some are from other areas, and defense attorneys to defend the accused. And the trial itself is heard in the Senate. The senators are the judge and jury. And the chief judge of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, hears the case. So he can rule what evidence can be admitted or not. He presides over the case. So they decided, no, we're not going to hear it. We're not going to have a case. So now what are you going to do?
So it looks like we're going into a dead end.
Kind of.
Right? So
yeah.
No. How can we do? We just sit here and look at each other and see, okay, we have some bad guys. They control our life. They control our country. They did the bad thing, but we can do nothing about it. I know there are so many people who wants to do something, wants to have change.
Right now, the limited options are at the ballot box in November. Mm-hmm. So, this whole miscarriage of justice in the justice system and in the legislative system is being orchestrated by Democrats. And the head of the Democrats is Joe Biden, with the not so able assistance of Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. So, the only answer is don't let him get reelected, period. Don't let him even, stop the nomination. Now, you already have all the speculation that Biden knows, you could see the poll numbers, you could see all of that. The other Democrats can see the numbers, and the decision they're looking at is don't let him be the nominee of the party at the convention, even though he may still want to. He may still think he's physically and mentally able to carry out the presidency and do just as well as he's been doing. Well, that's probably true. He's probably able to keep up his standard is probably a level that he can keep. But right. The question is, do the Democrats, the rest of the Democrats, the party itself, do they want that? Do they want him back on the ballot in November? So they've got between now and then to figure that out, and to figure out how, when they have the convention, how they'll keep him from being the nominee, whether they'll do it on the floor. Now, up till now, the Democrats just invent new laws every time they turn around. So they'll probably invent new procedures that have never been done before in their political convention. And, in the meantime, the Republicans will have their convention and they'll be arguing with each other like they do. They'll be trying to figure out, oh, we should have a different Speaker of the House, and we shouldn't have this, and we shouldn't have that. Democrats, they'll all be lined up like toy soldiers.
Mhm.
And whatever the leadership of that party, and I'm not talking about Joe Biden, but other leaders of the party may already see that there's no hope of reelection for Joe Biden. And so they're going to want a different nominee to run for president. We'll see. It's all going to be, right now, politics is really going to be the number one spectator sport in the United States in the next couple of months.
Yeah, yeah. And then some good news from my experience this couple of days is that so many people, more and more people realize what's going on in this country, and people don't like it at all. The recent example is last night. I went to a federal building to do something, do some business, and I met a guy, a gentleman. I think he's at his 40s, in the lobby. We're waiting for the interview or things like that. So we're waiting in the lobby, and we saw a TV that shows Trump just gave some speech after the court. So just him and me. So I just asked him, do you know where it is? And he said, probably New York or Washington, D.C. or whatever the court is. And then he just knocked his hand. He said, it's too much. It's way too much. So then I know that his opinion. I said, what do you think about that? He said, I never saw these things happen in my entire life. This is definitely wrong. We need to change.
Agree.
Yeah. So this is just a very regular people just say that. And remember, it's in California. It's in California. And then he said, I noticed something wrong after 2020, but I don't think it's so serious like this. And he told me if they can treat Trump like that, they can treat you and me like that too. So nobody's safe if they keep doing things like this. It's totally wrong. And then he told me, he said, I have confidence that we will take it back this year, the end of this year. We will do it. I said, you feel very confident? He said, yes, we have to.
Yeah, I would agree completely. The problem is that for most Americans, it's not, I look at this, it's not, things are not bad enough. Most people can still go about their business for the most part, aren't having their houses front door broken down. Now, some people, if you protest abortions, you do something like that, yeah, the FBI might come and break down your door and take you away. But for the average person, that's not going to happen. The average person, the impact of Joe Biden and the administration in the last 3+ years has been okay, gas prices are higher, food prices. And then, of course, they lie about the stats. So if you go back to how does food price compare today to 3.5 years ago? And they could say, well, it's up 20%. How about gasoline? It's up 20, 30%. How about home heating? It's up 20, 30%. How about the cost of homes, mortgages, interest rates, all of the, down the line, one thing after another. And for the average American now, it's happened gradually during the Biden administration so that most people are just kind of used to it now. Oh, well, the gas is higher. We'll change our vacation plans. Maybe we won't buy a house new this year. We'll buy one next year. All of these things people just are adjusting to, and then they get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's almost like, the old story of the frog being put in a pot of water and then they turn the heat on. And it just gradually, after a while, it just gets hot. Well, it's a little warmer. The frog is sweating. Oh, it's not terrible. They can survive it and get used to it. Then all of a sudden, that's it. No more. And I think that that's what's happened to most people. The so-called silent majority is still silent because they're not being directly affected. Let's take, for example, the current demonstrations at Columbia University in New York City. Now, here you have people that are paying an outrageous fortune to go to Columbia.
Right.
And now that the university says, well, all these protesters, we can't stop that. So just stay home. We're going to do schooling from home. Can you imagine you pay all that money and now you have to go home and get out your computer, and now you're going to learn, Columbia level Ivy League education at home. And people are just like, oh, well, okay. Now, the rest of the country, especially people going to a state school, state, junior college or 4-year school or commuter school or whatever, that's not an Ivy League school. Or they get a discount on tuition and fees because they're in state going to a college or university in their state that's partially subsidized by state funding. So for them, well, it's not that, if those people at Columbia, if they have to go home and learn, too bad. So what? We're here, at our school. It's still the education is still going on. And that's part of what the problem is, that all of these terrible things that are happening really don't affect everybody. Or you don't have enough of the population saying, we should never have this in our country. So the fact that it's going badly there, we've got to put a stop to that. So that's why we want law and order when the next election happens, something like. But for the most of the public, mind my own business. I don't care what happens. It's New York City. What do you expect? Mm-hmm. That kind of attitude. Or they're not going to Harvard. They're not going to Princeton or another Ivy League school. They're going to state universities. Now, what's interesting about that is those schools aren't private. The endowment that they get, the money they get from the federal government for research projects and other things, to me, makes it a glorified state school still. Mm-hmm. And the laws should apply. Whatever rules happen, in that sense, should apply to everybody. Right. But I think that I just think, my personal opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, that the public has just not been pushed far enough. Things have not gotten bad enough for enough people, for a majority of the people. Mm-hmm. So I think that to me is where the big problem is. That, heating costs. It's happened gradually enough, the cost of heating, the cost of food, the cost of gasoline, since 3 years ago. So people have just gotten used to it, and maybe make adjustments that, okay, we won't go cross country on vacation this year. We'll wait till later. And some of the other things people are oblivious to. We have a petroleum reserve that's designed to help the country when we have hurricanes, especially if we have hurricanes along the southern coast of the United States that could wipe out many oil refineries, gas refineries, would do severe damage. That's why that reserve was created years ago, that we could get through a difficult time and keep it going as a matter of national defense. So Biden has depleted that to the lowest level it's ever been. Right. And now the problem is, when they were putting in oil in the reserve, it might have been $40 a barrel. Right. To buy the oil, the government buy the oil and put it in the reserve. Now it's $140 in oil, and they can't afford to fill it. They can't afford to do as much. So, another area of damage that most people don't see. We don't have a hurricane. We haven't had one along the southern border in a while that wipes out all the refineries in Texas, Louisiana, across the water. Gulf of Mexico. So as long as they get away with this stuff, because we don't have a huge disaster that we've had protection against in the past, as that's been diminished, so what? So Biden, if he'll be out of office probably the next time we have Hurricane Katrina go across the Gulf states and wipe out all these refineries. So he won't pay the price, but we will.
Yeah. So this is the stolen election effect, the result. I'm glad that you mentioned about the Columbia University right now experience some kind of cultural revolution right now. And some people compare this cultural revolution to 2020, the BLM revolution. So what do you think do you think there are similarities between these two? things, or they're totally separate, different thing?
I don't know if they're totally separate. I think we don't know who's really funding the demonstrations now, who's paying for the signs that they're putting out, who's really behind the demonstrations. Now with Black Lives Matter, oh, you couldn't say this back then. That was a gangster organization. That was a complete fraud on the American people. And the people that ran BLM got rich and bought expensive houses and did all this before they disbanded. So you have BLM was just like an organized crime family, made a ton of money, hiding behind we're doing good for Black people. We're fighting for justice. No, we're fighting to become millionaires and spend the money on our own millionaire houses and get away with it. And they did get away with it. So I think in a way, it's kind of like, how do you evaluate the sincerity of the protesters? Who's behind it? Who's encouraging them to actually do it? Now, since then, you've had, billionaires that went to Columbia, and that they're saying we've got to do something now to do something to fight this, to fight the students that are going. And the answer they have is, well, the graduates of Columbia, then we won't hire them into these elite jobs that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we'll protest in our own way by not hiring graduates from that school. But again, that won't last, and it's not something we're going to see.
So it obviously creates some chaos again. This is a year of election. So why people compare these 2 years, because these are the election year. So when we see something happen in Colombia, to me, I just think about the Cultural Revolution in China. It's exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And then some people just wonder why these kind of revolution always start in the grade school, top schools. Do you have any idea why they
Yeah,
always?
what's the basis of these so-called revolutions? Marxism. And so Marxism, the basic teachings of Marxism, going back to Karl Marx in the 1850s, the basic teaching is eliminate the family, eliminate religion, eliminate, institutions of the government right now, so that you don't have democracy, you don't have free elections, you don't have all of that. Start indoctrinating with the students, little kids, high school, college. And then, years ago, the philosophy or the thinking was that, okay, this indoctrination, when these college graduates that are so liberal now, that are so progressive and left wing and woke and everything else, when they get in the real world, they'll get a lesson that no, none of that. Just forget all of that, and become good capitalists, become good citizens, become whatever. And what happened is that as they graduated, they didn't grow up and grow out of it. They decided they became the leaders of companies. They become the leaders of universities and teaching institutions, high school and college. So they basically get indoctrinated, get converted to this philosophy. And you see this now when you see on the news when they show school board meetings, their philosophy of what they're going to teach, or college or protest or whatever it is, you see that the people with this totally progressive left wing are taking over. Now, you had some of it, there's maybe some bringing it back a little bit, back to conservatism. But if you look at, for instance, you had how many universities across a country say that we're going to eliminate testing to get into our, the University of Oregon or Harvard. We're not going to use SATs anymore. We're going to use the color of your skin. We're going to use, other reliable things like that. You look at Harvard and the discrimination against Asian students when they were using twisting affirmative action to benefit blacks and not and to eliminate and basically put Asians in the same category as whites. You don't deserve any assistance or protection. And that had to go to, all kinds of lawsuits. Now, just in the past couple of months, you have Oregon say, you know what, we're going to bring back the SAT because we have all these students coming in and they can't pass the courses. They can't read and write at level. And you have Harvard finally saying, okay, we're going to put back SAT, requirements again. So, maybe that's an indication that the further we go, this wokeism is going to be defeated or eliminated. But so far, the problem, the country is based on the philosophy, the old cliche, may the best man win. Well, now it's not the best man or woman. It's maybe the darkest man or woman, or a woman instead of a man, or any of these things like that. And you have distortion of it's no longer by merit. It's you're taking a country and saying there's no need to be a meritocracy. You want to fly an airplane for United Airlines or something, you have to have the right skin color. You have to be the right sex. You have to be trans. You have to be something. And we don't care if you flunk the school of how to fly an airplane. We don't care if you get in the simulator and crash every time. As long as you're the right color, we're going to keep you on. Same thing with them, and then carry it all the way down to the mechanics. So you have Boeing aircraft flying, and the doors are falling off, and the wheels are falling off on takeoff. All these kind of things, and where is anybody talking about? Let's go back to the records of the maintenance of that aircraft. Who worked on the wheels? Who put the doors on? Who did the maintenance on those parts of because that should be documented. But if they don't like who actually worked on it, they don't want to bring discipline and fire that person. Oh, no, hide it from the public.
So it seems like more and more people are realize that under Biden administration, under Democrats, the whole country just going to a wrong direction, and the wrong direction will lead us to a dead end. So where's the turning point of
I hope the turning point, besides right now, some of the schools, some of the businesses that are realizing this is wrong, but the real turning point is going to be in November. And the fear I have is that not enough people have been knowledgeable or become knowledgeable of the policies and the programs that the Biden administration has put in that are leading to this. So is Biden, everything is focused on Biden tripping, going upstairs and walking like a robot and all of this. But is that enough to get people to say, this person should not be the president of the United States, the leader of the free world? No way. We've got to find somebody competent. And I don't care, Democrat or Republican, but somebody that's going to be competent, that's going to have the mental and physical capacity to do the strains of this office. I mean, just little things. Look at the vacation schedule that Biden's had since he's been in office. He has spent 40% of his time at the beach or at his other homes in Delaware. Look at all of that. Somebody's got to look at that and say, enough. Enough is enough.
That's right. I totally agree with you. Enough is enough. And then hopefully by November, 80%, let me put on this number, 80% of voters can realize that we cannot afford that anymore. No more.
And we may have that. I like Trump's slogan that we need to get the vote out so that it's too big to rig.
Right.
That we have such a majority, overwhelming majority voting. If nothing, they talked about in the last election, people were voting Biden because they were voting against Trump. Well, this time, I don't care. Vote against Biden, no matter what. Do not let this guy or the people around him have the power again. And then you look at, all of the people that Biden put in secretary positions, his national security advisor, Secretary of State Blinken, and the other people in his administration are pretty much holdovers from Obama. So they've already proven that they were no good. And then he puts them back into position. Jake Sullivan, for example, National Security Advisor. This guy has no business being a security advisor in any way, shape, or form. These neocons that only want war. They want the U.S. to always be at war.
Right. It's a special interest group take over this country. And we have lots of old friends, our dear friends, audience, like say hi to you. Big Dream, Coffee Cool, Faye, and 老普贵珍 just say hi, Tom. So glad to see you. See you with the show. And Faye said it's double standard. It's so obviously it's a double standard, the whole thing. And how come the American people have the faith to the law? Where's the law? And this is like a communist party, no difference. This is a dictatorship. And Biden always talk about the Democrats, talk about the freedom. It's so ridiculous. What he did is just totally dictatorship. And Grace, hello, Grace. And then Faye said the only hope is an election on November. And then the situation right now is has to be changed.
No, I agree. And you look at, just the samples of Marxism where it actually took over a country. So you can go back to, you don't have to go back to 1858, Karl Marx's first essays, which he wrote in London, University of London. But in any event, you have the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Throw out you had the people become dissatisfied with the Tsar and the First World War and other factors in Europe. And so they bring in the Bolsheviks, Lenin and Stalin and the rest of them, Communist Party. And so then that takes over for how many years until it completely fails. And finally, it dissolves in 1991 after being in existence from 1917. But then you look at the other, so that failed. Then where else does it get put into effect? 1949, Mao takes over the People's Republic of China. And the CCP has been running China now since 49. And 1.4 billion people. And for the most of them, if you look at the peasants out in the countryside working in the rice paddies, then what do they know about the current government in Beijing or what Xi is doing or some of the other leadership is doing? They just go about their business and hope it doesn't impact on them, and it's not negative enough to them to actually cause another revolution or to cause disruption in their country. Then look at after that, look at Cuba, look at Venezuela, look at some of these other countries that have gone communist. How'd that work out for any of them? Venezuela had the strongest economy in South America. Now they're impoverished. Where are they now? Where are some of these other countries that adopted these kind of Marxism, basically? And you see that what it took for Marxists to take over was control the media, take apart the family, destroy organized religion, take all these institutions that are going on within the democracy or within the country and eliminate them or dismantle them or make them just have no power. And you're seeing that step by step by step in the United States. And, you see Joe Biden and his cronies instituting Marxism. Simple as that.
So I just like you said, Tom, we wish that more and more people can realize that the current situation, which made them not happy, and nobody's happy with the current situation, is because of the policy of the Biden administration and of the philosophy of their thoughts. It's not only the bad policies; it's the thought behind the
Well, you
Pol-
look at the polling, let's say, and not all of the polling is dishonest, but the polls come out and you look at Biden and they say, oh, he's in deep trouble because he's under 40%, or his approval rating is in the 30% range. And Kamala Harris, she's in the 20s, so she's worse than he is. But you look at that and you think, okay, you take 30%. Now, if we have 350 million people in this country, 10% would be 35 million. So you're looking at 90 or 100 million people think Biden's doing a good job. And you have to ask, and I ask myself when I see this, I'll just speak for me. Who are these morons that support Biden? Where are they? What are they thinking? What are they looking at that tells them this is the best president and the best government we can have in this country?
So
So
I
I have a hard, I don't know.
you believe the number? The only explanation I can thought is the number is not right.
Well, I think, yeah. And I think the only reason it's not right is when you see, in the public news, Trump's no good. Trump's a dictator. Trump's the next Hitler. Trump's all of this. And you get a phone call from a polling company. Are you going to vote for Trump for president? Oh, no, no. Even though you are, you don't tell them. So I think that a lot of the numbers that come in, you look at it and say, okay, that can't be true. People are now willing to admit that
Mhm.
they'll support Trump over Biden. But on the other hand, then election happens, the last 2, 3 election cycles we've had, and the vote pretty much holds up that the polling wasn't that far off.
So,
So
well, to
how does
me,
that happen? How does the polling, when it comes close to Trump and Biden and they start counting the numbers,
mhm.
and Biden ends up on top, and you say, okay, they probably stole so many thousand here and in this jurisdiction and that, and stuffed the ballots and mail-in ballots and drop boxes and all of these type of things. But at the basic core, he still got tens of millions of votes.
Well,
I
there,
can't believe that guy gets 5 million votes, much less 30 or 40 million or
well,
60 million or any of the numbers that they come up with.
I think there are two steps they're doing now. First, they steal your vote. First, yeah, they steal your vote, and meantime, they steal your mind by the big medias. So when the media keep telling people something, some people will believe it.
True. That's
So
true.
this is the power of media. So that's why they have to control the media.
Yeah,
They
even the founding fathers said 250 years ago that we'll be able to keep our democracy with a well-informed public, which will require an honest media. And we
exactly,
don't have that.
yeah, it's so true.
Now,
So
more and more, we're starting to get it. I think
right.
the more and more people, people that I know that don't have the internet, they're relying on CBS or NBC or CNN or some of these channels for practically every bit of information they get, or liberal left-wing newspapers to tell them all the reasons Trump's no good and Biden's great and these policies are working. So that's part of the problem, is that the more and more people get awakened, let's say, by honest media on the part of some people.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, the number of people in this country that think that Putin is so evil that what he did in Ukraine, invading Ukraine, was completely unjustified. Well,
Mhm.
if you study any history of the Ukraine, go back to 2014 when the democratically elected president was overthrown by the United States.
Mhm.
Go back to, we put in all these morons to run Ukraine, including the latest, Zelensky, a comedian and actor. Suddenly he's running the country, running around in green sweaters like he's a tough guy military. And, most of the people don't realize that. They just look at even our Congress. They should know better. Look at the vote in the House of Representatives this past weekend to pass the funding bill to send money to Ukraine. And when the cameras show the members of the House, you see them jumping up and down and cheering, waving Ukrainian flags. Now,
Yeah,
to me, the waving of a foreign flag in the United States House of Representatives to me is horrible. It's horrible that they would be more enthusiastic of supporting Ukraine than our own border security or our own people.
Right.
You know, so that's been going on. That's got to change.
This have to be changed. And there's a saying that the truth and the only truth will set people free. That means, in other words, if you don't get the truth, and you're not free.
Well, that what to me that says that you've got to be locked up in a concentration camp first. Then maybe you can get set free. That's what I was getting at earlier. It sounds evil, but that the American people have not suffered enough to take it seriously. Pretty much their lives are going on. And if their kids are going to college, they can go to the University of Virginia. They don't have to go to Yale or Columbia or Princeton. You know, the jobs that people have, if they have some insurance or Medicare or Social Security, whatever, that's good enough. So you don't have enough people suffering to think they need to be set free. That's the
Right.
problem is you don't have that. So I don't know. I don't know. We haven't bottomed out yet. That's my feeling is that we don't have enough,
Mhm.
um, enough people suffering. And not that I want people to suffer, but if they don't, then
Mhm.
they don't see any need to change what's going on. Status quo is fine.
So
We're
we'll,
good enough.
yeah, that's a hard reality. And then this is a reality, no matter how hard it is.
Right.
So thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us the truth. That's so important. And the only thing matters is about the truth. And then you mentioned it, the reality, which is really sad, but it's so true. And we'll see next few months what will happen. Maybe things will change. Who knows?
Hope so.
Yeah.
Hope so.
I really appreciate it, Tom.
Okay. Take
So,
care. See you next week.
see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye bye.